During this section, we're going to be looking at making decisions about using pesticides. We all know that pesticides are expensive, so you can't afford to use them without good reason. So how do you decide when it's appropriate to use a chemical? To make this decision, you'll need to think about the following steps. Firstly, you'll need to identify the pest. Make sure you get it correctly identified, because controlling the wrong pest can cost you a lot in terms of time and money. It may mean taking a sample of the pest and the damage it's causing to your local Department of Primary Industries, or perhaps sending it away to a research station or similar place for correct identification and more information about how to control it. Secondly, you'll need to ask yourself, how widespread is this pest? This means that you'll need to be monitoring your crop or your pasture or livestock regularly, so you're aware of which pests are present and in what numbers. Thirdly, and critically, a question to ask is the damage being caused by this pest sufficient to justify spending money and time on controlling it? That is, do I need to take action now because damage from the pest is going to cost me money in loss of income later? To answer this question, we need to think about thresholds, about the level of damage that we're seeing. What we call the economic threshold is a point when pest numbers are great enough to be causing you actual financial loss unless it's controlled immediately. Your management plan should be to avoid reaching this point. An earlier point is what we call the action threshold, when treatment should be used to prevent the numbers of pests reaching that higher economic threshold. These action thresholds can be difficult to work out, but obviously there's a lot more room for error here than there is for the economic threshold. Some of the considerations you might have are about the overall health of your crop or pasture or livestock, the age, and usually younger animals or younger plants are more susceptible to pests, what sort of climatic conditions you're experiencing, and if there are any natural enemies of the pest present. But remember that the overall aim is to make sure that the money you spend on the control of the pest is less than the benefits you receive. Another question you'll be asking yourself is, what control methods are available? Do your research and find out how this pest can be controlled, and don't limit it just to finding out about chemicals. You might be surprised that making some changes to your management or your routines may mean that the pest is less likely to be a worry in the future. Get some good advice on this by talking to agronomists or other advisors. If you do decide to use a pesticide, which one should you choose? And there's lots to think about here. Some of the issues you might think about when choosing an actual pesticide are asking yourself, which pesticides are registered for my particular situation? Remember that you're only legally able to use pesticides that are registered for use on that particular pest, in that particular crop, in that particular state or that particular situation. So that's often step one, is finding out which pesticides are registered. Once you've got your short list of pesticides, you might ask which one is least toxic. go for the lower level of toxicity if possible. If you're using spray, you might be looking for one that is least likely to drift. And so we talk about pesticides with lower volatility. You might be asking how long is the withholding period for this pesticide, remembering that you are not able to sell or often to harvest within the withholding period that's nominated for the pesticide. For livestock, we often talk about export slaughter intervals, which are simply withholding periods for livestock that are destined to be slaughtered for export. You might be asking, can I mix it with other chemicals? This might be for efficiency, that you can mix it with other chemicals and actually cut down the number of applications that you need to do. You may ask, are there any sensitive crop, pasture or environmental areas within range? And for example, there may be a neighbour's crop or pasture that will be damaged, and you'll certainly need to take account of that. You may have waterways, sensitive waterways within range, and you'll need to consider buffer zones or particular types of chemicals that are appropriate to use. You may ask, does it remain active for some time? Okay, sometimes chemicals are designed to remain active for an extended period of time to give ongoing protection from the pest. We call these chemicals residual chemicals, and for example, pre-emergent herbicides often have quite a long residual effect in the soil, and may in fact impact on the management of that particular paddock even into the next crop year. This is only some of the issues that you would be thinking about. There may be others that will be important for your specific situation. Let's summarise those steps in your decision making. Firstly, identify the pest that's actually causing the damage. You may save yourself a lot of money at this stage. Secondly, monitor your situation so you know how widespread this pest is and what actual damage it's causing. Thirdly, consider if the cost of control will be balanced by the returns you receive. Fourth, find out about all control methods available, not just chemicals. And finally, if you actually do decide to use a pesticide, choose it very carefully. Once you've got answers to all of these questions, you can then devise your own pest management plan to make sure you get the most effective and efficient control.